Do you know what your name means? My name is Paul Donald, okay? Paul Donald Glyman. And Donald means world ruler. Paul means small, so I'm a small world ruler. Okay, so Jacob. Jacob's name in the Old Testament, it means heel grasper, cheat, or supplanter. He was a weasel, okay? But he succeeded in a lot of things, but it always came with a price tag, okay? So he cheats Esau out of the blessing, but he lost Esau's goodwill. So it's like, oh, I got what I wanted, but now I've got a broken relationship with my brother. He outwitted his blind and ailing father, but he lost his good name. And so these victories didn't bring him the satisfaction that he was ultimately looking for. And then he goes through a bunch of other encounters, and now he's got to come back, and he's got to see his brother Esau again. And so he has this encounter, so he's on his way back, and in Genesis chapter 32, verse 22, it says, during the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servant wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp. Sometimes we got to get alone. Sometimes we have to have an encounter with God. We can't have our stuff with us. We can't be with other people because it's time to have an encounter with God. And so then this man shows up. We understand this is a heavenly being. Whether it's God himself or whether it's angelic is really not that important. But he wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. When the man saw that he could not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. Then the man said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And then the man asked, well, what's your name? Now, why would he ask him, what's your name? He knows who it is. He says, Jacob. And he says, your name will no longer be Jacob. From now on, you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won. So a couple things I want to say about this. First of all, why did God ask him, what's your name? And he says, Jacob. He's reminding him that the last time somebody asked him his name, it was his father, and he lied to him. He said, my name's Esau. Sometimes when we have an encounter with God, he reminds us, and he alone can do it in a redemptive way, that yeah, you got some stuff in your past. Own up, fess up, be honest about it, and I can deal with you. Then he changes his name to Israel. And I think this verse is ironic because it says you've won. Well, he won, but he lost. He was being a weasel. And now God's going to give him a limp, and it seems like he really loses. Well, what James Montgomery Boyce says, I think, is very interesting. That a lot of times we interpret, because it's 2 words that are put together, Sarah and El, which means to fight, and El means God. So it's like to fight with God. And so commentators have said he struggles with God or he prevails with God. But here's the thing. There's a lot of other names like Samuel and Daniel, and they mean, like Daniel means God judges, not he judges God. And Samuel means God heard, not he heard God. So it means that God prevails. So what does all this mean? It means that sometimes it seems like we're losing. We got this limp, okay? But from this point on, Israel's a changed man. Israel's story starts pretty badly. His character was really deficient early on. But after this encounter with God and after he's limping, it turns out to be a blessing. Sometimes people might look at you and say, man, you know, by the world standards, you don't have a whole lot. You might feel like you're weak, all right? But the Bible tells us that in our weakness, God's grace and is made perfect, okay? God wants to work in a very positive way in our lives when it seems like sometimes we're losing, because you know that sometimes when you think you're winning, you're not really winning at all. God bless you. Have a great day.